If you're looking at, for example, the pharmacy technician program, if I remember correctly, actually, excuse me one second, it helps to bring back up. In my packet, I included a variety of our brochures, and I was hoping that it mentioned the cost, but it didn't. I seem to remember that it's probably about in the $1,300 range, and that's over a span of 4 to 5 months. Mm-hmm. So again, these are the costs that have to be provided, paid for up front. So there are no real, ways within our system for it to be a monthly payment plan or other such things. So somebody has to come up with over $1,000 to take this course, at the end of which they will be certified, assuming that they pass the New York State exam, to then become a pharmacy technician.
And for a lot of the folks we want access to these programs, that's cost prohibitive, even if you were to stretch it over time.
Right, and even if you're currently employed but perhaps underemployed, or you want to switch, that's what makes it also very difficult. So not having any access to funding for what we say the non-credit side of the house is detrimental, and it probably discourages people as well from going into some of the trades and the vocational programs.
Could I address that topic as well, actually? And I want to bring it from a different perspective a little bit. So we have a program that we were approached by several breweries that wanted to get training because they had students that they were desperate for employers.
And there's a high demand for breweries.
Exactly. So it's craft beer. And they approached our college and said, we're looking for brewery students. And so we developed 3 programs actually at our college. One was a non-credit, and it's an introduction to craft beer program, which we were able to get on the boards quickly because we don't need to go through the regulations of SUNY and state ed to get those programs on the books. Simultaneously, we also created a certificate program and a 2-year program that have just been approved and now will be offered in the fall, but we've already now had graduates from our credential program. We partnered with not only the breweries, but also with the Workforce Development Boards, those one-stops that I mentioned in my testimony. They funded 9 of the 15 students that went through that program. We're going to be offering again in the fall. In the fall, the charge will be $1,500. So again, students so some of them were able to qualify for those Workforce Development Board funding, some were not, so they were, again, self-paced students, as we've been hearing over and over. But one thing that we also have put in place is articulation agreements on the non-credit to the credit side. Mm-hmm. So those students, some of them took it for interest, imagine that, for craft beer. However, many of them took it as a pointing towards career. And again, now they have the brewers who are already involved with the program, ready to do some hiring for them if they were successful. 14 of the 15 graduated. Now they also are going to receive 3 credits that if they decide that they want to pursue the certificate program or the 2-year program, they'll now have 3 credits pointing toward that. So that's a model that we've started to look at, and I'm sure is happening at some of the other colleges as well.
That's a really good point, and brewery is kind of a example of what's really happening. I mean, we're investing a lot of money in the expansion of breweries here in the state. I mean, that's part of our economic development, our tourism, and all that kind of stuff. And but now you see how the workforce development piece fits in with what we're doing with economic development investment. But it leads to another question. Was that a group of breweries, or okay? So now this leads to the more complex question that I have, and that is, you heard testimony from folks earlier, and we always hold up the building trades as the model, and they truly are the model. They have one benefit that many, many other industries don't, and that is an association of employers on one side, an association of labor unions on the other side. And when labor and management gets together and they have a mutual interest here, and that is they want a workforce, they want it to be a qualified workforce, and they want to have success. They've been able to put together amazing programs. One of the barriers that we have talked about throughout this year as we've done these hearings and roundtables is how do you model that when you have single employers or in industry, food processing, whatever it is, or brewery, or the medical area that you talked about. Any thoughts on how we can model it so that you can have a group of employers that then are participating to make sure that we have the funding and the well-developed programs and whatever the job preparation training is. Any thoughts?
I can take it in a very different industry, actually two different industry directions, and one of them would be around optics. I mean, that's a big industry cluster in our region. It certainly is not building trades. And what we've been able to see is that working with, again, many small employers, there's not really the Kodak or the Bausch & Lomb or the Xerox anymore. You're talking about employers, most of whom have fewer than 100 employees, but bringing them together in an umbrella group such as the Finger Lakes Advanced Manufacturing Enterprise, then those are employers who are willing to do several things. One is to invest in programs, including in the case of FAME and Rochester Technology Manufacturing Association, a summer, what would essentially be a pre-apprenticeship program in advanced manufacturing that we partner with BOCES on. So they've actually invested in that, and what they do with graduates of that program is they promise them an internship the next summer. So you do see that level of investment. I'll take it now to healthcare. When there were significant nursing shortages in our region, we had a consortium of hospitals and insurance providers come together and fund an expansion of that program because the workforce need was there. And so I'll go back just to that notion of demand-driven. I think what probably we could all report is that if there is a need for a workforce that's not being currently met, you will see employers come to the table and invest in programs and invest in students, both through scholarships, also equipment and internships. But I will also say that sometimes that notion of an apprenticeship, even that language, is not something that they're that interested in adopting. They are much more comfortable with talking about internships or even working as preceptors or having field work. But sometimes it's the language you use to bring them to the table that matters.
Other thoughts about that?
Well, in part in the healthcare field, there is that, as you mentioned, the rigidity. It takes 3 years for the Department of Labor to approve a new apprenticeship. By that time, the demand is gone. They have already met that demand. So you're not creating anything that is valuable to an employer. And unfortunately, the apprenticeship becomes such a strong barrier that's why we were asking decouple the pre-apprenticeship model from the registered apprenticeship, make it industry-driven, and respond to the demands. New safety rules are being put in place every day for long-term care. We are responding, but if we were to wait for the Department of Labor to come back with guidelines, it would be 3-4 years. So those are some of the issues that we're facing when we deal with apprenticeship. In other areas, the responsiveness and the idea of being able, like the community health workers that I mentioned in my presentation, we can respond by working. We have an informal council of an advisory group, whatever you want to call it, of employers that feed back to us every week, practically. This is what I need you to focus on because asthma is the next really heavy concern. And we can gear because of the nimbleness, but by the same token, we need to provide that foundation, that educational foundation that will allow individuals not to deal with, multivariate analysis, but to be able to move on to a different career or an additional training. We don't want to continue to train the working poor. And certified nurses say the average salary wage is between $10 and $12 an hour, not a living wage. And Medicaid reimbursement is what it is, but so we are trying to get individuals to use that as a starting point, as a step toward another area. By allowing and opening up an apprenticeship in that area specifically, you can create those building blocks. We can create it on our own, but it would lead to some validity if the state was involved. You may want to call it something different, but at least having the capacity to bring together the industry leaders, the insurance company, to allow for that flexibility and that level of work.
Thank you. I think we are thinking about this as so that it's not one size fits all. There's different ways that we can approach helping people to get employability skills, whatever those are, and helping them to get the education and other knowledge that they need so that they can go out and get that first job and hopefully a long career. And so we probably have to have more conversation about this and how we fit the community colleges in this. Some of it will be with apprenticeship, some of it won't, though. And I think we recognize that. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next witness, we have Joan Stetton, Grants Manager and Pre-Apprentice Program Director from the New York City District Council of Carpenters Training Center.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to present this morning, or this afternoon. My name is Joan Staunton. I'm the Pre-Apprenticeship Program Director for the New York City District Council of Carpenters Training Center, and I'm here to speak about our pre-apprenticeship program known as Building Works. The New York City District Council of Carpenters Training Center, or the CTC, is the training entity for the District Council and their signatory contributing contractors. The CTC trains over 1,000 carpenter apprentices and 11,000 journey-level carpenters per year in 5 New York State approved apprenticeship programs. To enhance the recruitment for the apprenticeship, help to diversify the membership, and offer accessibility to underserved communities, the CTC has hosted a pre-apprenticeship training known as Building Works since 1995. The 4-year carpenter's apprenticeship maintains an 80% retention rate, and we believe that having had a pre-apprenticeship training for so long has helped contribute to that strong retention. Building Works, the pre-apprenticeship training, has been operating since 1995. The program has served over 1,000 individuals from low-income communities in the New York City area. The training prepares people for careers in the skilled trades. Ideally, successful Building Works graduates enroll in a unionized apprenticeship program. The 12-week training is tuition-free. It includes technical coursework and prepares candidates for a union apprenticeship. Building Works is a New York State Department of Labor-approved pre-apprenticeship training with direct entry status. It allows program graduates to access apprenticeship opportunities with the New York City District Council of Carpenters and as well as other related unionized trades. During the 12-week training, students gain experience from classes in several categories, including an introduction to apprenticeship, worker health and safety, and career guidance. Participants can also receive a variety of formal certifications specific to the industry, such as OSHA, scaffold, and hazardous waste worker training. Some of our program outcomes: Building Works has a successful placement rate of 82%, and the average wage for program graduates is $18 an hour. Last year, 89% of program graduates began the carpenter's apprenticeship. In the 2015 program year, we found a substantial increase in income for program graduates. Prior to enrollment, participants were earning an average of $8.74 an hour, with an average individual income of less than $10,000. For that same cohort, the average placement wage post-program was $18, with an estimated annual earnings of $34,000, resulting in a dramatic economic increase for the families served. This afternoon, we wanted to share some of the highlights and challenges we face with Building Works. One of the highlights of our program is our relationship with community partners. in order to ensure we're reaching our targeted communities and providing these opportunities to diverse populations. We partner with numerous community-based social service and other organizations throughout the New York City metropolitan area. These partners enhance our programs in several ways. First, each of these organizations offer multiple services to their communities, such as career exploration, GED, English as a second language classes, youth employment and internship programs. The organizations can identify interested candidates for building works from within their portfolio of programs, and they serve as excellent feeders for the pre-apprenticeship. Second, these organizations conduct outreach in their greater communities to assist in disseminating information about our program to make sure that the information about building works is widely accessible. And with these partners, we have more than a dozen locations throughout the New York City area where applicants can apply to building works. Third, the community partners conduct screening and process applications for our program, and collectively, the partners help us to process over 300 applications for each of our training cycles. But most importantly, they provide critical wraparound supportive services for program participants, helping them to complete the training and also succeed in an apprenticeship. Services such as basic skills in English language tutoring, crisis intervention, benefit screening, benefit application facilitation, public assistance intervention, and transportation assistance as needed. One of the challenges that leads us to is our candidate selection process. As I mentioned, we have over 300 applications for each of our training cycle. We can only work with about 25 people at a time. We are a nonprofit organization. We have limited resources in terms of budgeting, staffing, and facility space. So it's just impossible to serve all of the applicants who inquire about the program. So we've had to establish a selection process. What we've learned through that process is that successful candidates are not necessarily those with more skills, more education, or fewer barriers. Rather, they're those who, despite whatever challenges they face, are most interested and enthusiastic in careers in the building trades. And realizing that many applicants come from disadvantaged communities and may have limited opportunities, limited previous work experience, we don't look at test scores, level of schooling, or past work experience to identify successful candidates. Instead, we look for a candidate's commitment, their initiative, their aptitude, work ethic, and authenticity. And we use a combination of evaluation tools and activities throughout the selection process to help us identify this. The application process includes several steps. There's a comprehensive intake application, there's a basic skills test, and also individual interviews and group interviews. And again, in each of these activities, we include tools and evaluation strategies to help us find applicants who are most interested and enthusiastic about a career in the building trades. And we believe that the additional time spent during the selection process ensures that we're enrolling individuals who are more successful in the long run, and ultimately ensures a stronger success rate in the apprenticeship. Another highlight of our program is our relationship with the employer. And for any job training program, as many people have said today, that to be successful, you have to have connections to employers and to opportunities that are immediately available. Our program has a strong placement rate because of our connection with the Carpenter's Apprenticeship Program. And there's two ways that we leverage this strong relationship. First, that we are able to adapt our program to the specific needs of the apprenticeship of the employer. And second, that we are able to conduct the training at the Carpenters Training Center so that the pre-apprenticeship program participants have the same access to the state-of-the-art facility and the same instructors as apprentices. We adjust the training to accommodate the needs of the current market and forecasted needs for the carpenters and for the apprenticeship program. For example, in 2014, the forecast indicated a continued growth in carpentry. specifically in the specialties covered with the carpenter's apprenticeship. So to best prepare trainees for these jobs, we emphasized and focused courses and things that were most useful to carpenters as opposed to other related trades. Also, to address the increased need for new apprentices, we adjusted our training and recruitment cycles so that we were training more people at a higher frequency to align with the needs of the apprenticeship. We also believe that our positive outcomes are due to our focus on long-term goals. We don't measure success just by how many people finish the training or even by how many people start working. We look at how many people complete a 4-year apprenticeship after the pre-apprenticeship program. We highlight retention throughout all phases of the program. During recruitment, we're talking about the longevity of the program and the long-term goals that we're looking for. During the training phase, we infuse the curriculum with expectations for the apprenticeship program, as well as specific careers and specialties within the industry. In the past 2 years, we began follow-up efforts that included surveys and interviews with recent and past program graduates to gauge the effectiveness of the training and to help us make appropriate modifications. And finally, as our program's housed at the training center, we have the opportunity to see graduates when they are present for apprenticeship classes, and we take that opportunity to interview and collect anecdotal information. All of these efforts help us to collect data and information so we can measure long-term program effectiveness. And it also helps to infuse the importance of retention with students, graduates, and staff. Finally, another aspect of the program that I want to talk about this afternoon is our emphasis on soft skills. And we leave a lot of the hard skills training to the apprenticeship. The 3-month training is comprised of multiple components, but we've honed the 12-week training based on feedback from program graduates who are successful in the apprenticeship. In a recent survey of these graduates, 45% of those who responded indicated that the most important aspect from the pre-apprenticeship training was the strict attendance policy, and that managing your time well and learning to be on time had helped them the most in the apprenticeship. Far fewer individuals indicated that the hands-on skills covered during the pre-apprenticeship were as helpful. So with these findings in mind, we've placed a greater emphasis on the soft skills during the 12-week training. We incorporate workshops on issues such as fitness, nutrition, household budgeting, basic banking, credit and financial literacy, professional behavior, and diversity, and it's to better prepare graduates for the specific workplace. Integral to the component is inclusion of goal setting and career pathways, but this is information very specific to the building trades and to the specialties within the carpentry trade. So in conclusion, we believe that following factors help contribute to the success of our pre-apprenticeship program. First, that pre-apprenticeship programs should align training and career opportunities that are immediately available, that we develop multiple partnerships with different types of organizations to enhance the program and expand resources, to focus on long-term goals, that it's a career-minded program, not just looking for a job, but a career. And finally, the emphasis on soft skills that are specific to the industry. Thank you very much. That's all I had for today. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present some information about our program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just have a couple of brief questions. First of all, is this an approved pre-apprenticeship program through DOL? The Deputy Commissioner said there are 25 approved. I'm just curious.
Yes, we are an approved pre-apprenticeship program with direct entry status.
Okay, good. And I'm not sure I heard, the age of the people who are entering the pre-apprenticeship program, do you have both folks out of high school as well as adults who might be making a career change or something of that nature?
We have no age limit. We work with all ages. It's not focused. We're not focused specifically on youth, although most of our applicants are. I think the average age is 25. But again, we're stressing that this is a career training, and that the pre-apprenticeship program is meant to lead to a 4-year apprenticeship, which leads to a career in carpentry.
Yeah, I like that breakdown at the end when you said, the emphasis is on soft skills, not the actual hard trade skills. I was interested when you said that the focus of the pre-apprenticeship is clearly soft skills,
yes,
not the hard trade skill of carpentry, and that the stuff that you're doing related to those soft skills, although you make a connection with what it would be like to have a career in carpentry.
Yes, so we do include some hands-on hard skills training. Mostly that comes in safety training, mm-hmm. and it's we do some certifications that are mandatory on work sites, and that also helps applicants in the pre-apprenticeship program begin work right away if they enter the apprenticeship, because they don't have to wait to get their OSHA 10 card. Mm-hmm. They can start working immediately. And we work a lot of and there's basic skills and a lot of workshop. It's mostly classroom training, the 12 weeks. And so we try and work in a lot of the soft skills within the safety and other technical instructional training that we're doing. For example, it's classroom work, but they'll do a lot of small group projects. Or there's a lot of demonstration, or some opportunities where they're getting a chance to work directly with other students in the program. We also have multiple instructors, so they're not with one instructor for 12 weeks. We have sometimes groups of instructors coming in. So it's different types of training, although not specifically, they're not learning a lot of the hand skills mm-hmm. that they would learn in the 4-year apprenticeship.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in and testifying, but also thank you for the good work you're doing in your program. I said thank you for coming in and testifying, and thank you for the good work you're doing in your program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Dan White, District Superintendent from Monroe BOCES, and Jeff Madison, District Superintendent from Tompkins, Seneca, and Tioga BOCES.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chairs, thank you for the invite. We seem to have scared everybody away. So we
wore them down.
You got it, yes. Packing them in as usual, right? Again, Dan White, District Superintendent, Monroe BOCES, and my colleague Jeff Madison from Tompkins BOCES. You have our written testimony, so we're not going to read that to you. What I'd like to be able to do is to make a comment on maybe a couple salient issues. And then we were having a discussion while we were sitting up there listening to the testimony on what everybody, I think, is trying to accomplish. We may have a couple of thoughts on that as well, if that's okay. And then we'll certainly open it up for any questions. As you know, I'm representing the 37 BOCES in New York State. Annually, we serve about 35,000 students in our career and technical education programs, and about 20,000 adult learners in our adult career training program. So the scale is large, and I think the problem, I think respectfully, the problem that we're all trying to address is how do we scale successful programs to meet the needs of workforce development throughout the state. And certainly, Senator Bronson, you've heard from me ad nauseum about support for increased funding for career and technical education, not only for BOCES, but for the Big Five. And I think we've had discussions about how as a state we've systematically disinvested from a policy standpoint in career pathway training in school as well. And that is changing. Hearings like this are changing that tide, frankly. It's good to get this out there. But I think we're looking at the scalability of an issue where we need to explore any avenue to provide this opportunity for our citizens. So you understand the things that we're advocating for on behalf of career and technical education. We were struck by one thing as you're trying to possibly develop pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeships in industries that may not have that coalescing connector that like construction trades has. That's what we do. Your BOCES, your community colleges know these employers. We are running internship programs in those industries already, and if tasked with that, helping to develop those type of pre-apprenticeship programs along with employers in that industry is something we could do along with our community colleges. We have over 2,200 articulation agreements statewide between BOCES and higher education institutions, and we work with thousands of employers to put students into internships. So we are a potential conduit for helping to develop that in industries where there may not be that coalescing group. So that is something to think about. In terms of a funding standpoint, the adult career training is an area where there's tremendous need. We serve all of the Rochester area. There's tremendous need not only for English language learners, high school equivalency, but then transitioning those adults into career training. Hopefully a lot of those adults end up in President Kress's programs as they move on, but the needs, the core poverty that exists, the needs far outweigh the availability of slots and funding. So Jeff, I don't know if you have any comments.
Just wanted to add that business, industry, and the trades are on all of our advisory boards at BOCES. It's a requirement of the program approval process by the State Education Department. So it doesn't matter which program you're offering at BOCES. If you want it to be an approved CTE program, it has to have those folks at the table helping develop the curriculum and working with that teacher. And these meetings happen annually. This is an ongoing relationship. It's not just a one and done. And we have to go through reapproval. So it's not something that's static, that once you're approved, you let it go. We have a little bit of an element of quality control in our programs. We ensure that what students have access to is a very high quality product. It's flexible, and it's for us at the BOCES, it is focused on the career readiness part of the college and career readiness. One of the things that we've found is a roadblock between what folks look at in the college and career readiness focus that we've had in this era, that folks heard the college part first, and we've had a large emphasis on academics, which has kind of crowded out a little bit of the career readiness portion of the piece, and reinvesting in the career readiness part and having a build out in CTE certainly would be advisable with the students who aren't getting access right now because they're trying to get into an appropriate college program when they may have a more appropriate access to a high-paying job in one of the trades.
So I'll leave you with one thing, that currently 94% of the students that participate in career and technical education at BOCES graduate from high school, and that's another significant number. It's a testament to getting students hooked up to things that are meaningful to them as they move forward. So it's really an access issue to quality programming. With that, we'll be quiet and see if you have any questions for us.
Dan, on that last statistic that you just gave, 94% of the folks who go through the program graduate from high school.
Yes.
Do you have a breakdown on how many of those are from urban settings versus the suburban, rural settings?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can. Now, one thing I will mention to you is, while students from the Big Five are not prohibited from attending career and technical education programs at BOCES, the funding silos that exist make it cost prohibitive for those districts. So that's one of the pieces. I will tell you that, just to give you some of my numbers, the area that I represent, so it's not a particularly high poverty area, but 65% of the kids I have in career and technical education programming are at or below the poverty level. And so it is, those kids graduate, and that happens statewide.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about career exploration and actually, to a large degree, a lack of career exploration in high schools, and helping students and parents delve into what possibilities might exist for the young person trying to get an education that will then lead to work and good paying work with benefits. Have you taken any steps, either of you in the various areas that you serve, have you taken any steps to work on changing that career exploration, that discussion that certainly in my opinion isn't happening enough in high schools?
I can speak for area, then Jeff can go. We started a CT exploration program for 9th and 10th graders, and that may be a little too late, to be frank with you. We have long advocated for a change in some of the middle school regulations that allow for exactly that. And I think that is something that may be coming. That's a huge part of this discussion, introducing kids and getting them access to things when they are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.